What is going on, everybody? Star Wars Dad back for another video. Today I wanted to talk about my top 10 favorite decks that are kind of off meta, or not like, the main decks, but I still think are very competitive and a lot of fun. Before we get started with today's video, please make sure to like and subscribe. We are so close to a 3,000 subscriber giveaway. I think we're like 40 people away. I'm going to add in a Cad Bane to the giveaway as well, so make sure to just comment on this on the community page on this post below, so you can entered in for a chance to win one of those 4 different prizes. I greatly appreciate the support. The first deck I want to talk about, I just did a video on this deck, but I have not been able to stop playing this deck. I really enjoy this deck. It feels really good. It fits my playstyle. It's so much fun being able to like play Death Trooper or Elite Starfighter and exhaust their units as a form of slowing them down, while you look for certain pieces of removal, play top targets and enticing rewards, slow them down just to kind of get to your mid game. Your mid game is really fun in here with Bosk. So Bosk, this is like Bosk's home, this deck. So it ambushes in, which can exhaust a unit, or it can just ambush in and kill something. Then if it's able to stick on the board the following turn, on your 6 resource turn, you can either play a Vanquish, a Vigilance, or a Rival's Fall, or even a Power of the Dark Side, whatever. Play some piece of removal, but typically you want one that you can actually target something. So the first 3 options are a little better than Power, because you want to be able to target a specific one. So you remove like a 5-drop or a 6-drop or a big threat on the board that's been upgraded, whatever. And then you get to use Bosk's ability to ping another unit for 2 damage, which can either kill it if you've already set that up with Elite Starfighter or Death Trooper, or you can just exhaust it with Bosk's ability, and you can just kind of continue to do this as long as Bosk stays on the board, or if you find another one. So it's just a really sweet interaction just to be able to get a 2-for-1 from a removal from Bosk, and it just kind of helps you to. It's kind of like your. It connects you to your end game to get you to like your Cad Bane, Snoke, Avengers to kind of close the game out. Snoke is absolutely incredible in here, because as the game goes on, once you get a Snoke established, your Starfighter and your Death Trooper just become removal spells because everything is weakened. Bosk kills everything. Bounty Hunter crew kills everything on ambush. Snoke is really incredible in here, but this deck has just been really fun. I've been really enjoying it. And then you play tech to be able to get things back if you have to kind of resource some of your big payoffs early. So super fun deck. Definitely give this one a shot if you haven't already. I highly recommend it. And I think it's kind of one of those decks that we may see more and more of as this set goes on. Another one of my favorites. I don't think I've done I can't remember if I did a video on this one, but this one has been just really cool. A lot of early units with ECL to set up your My Only Hope on turn 2 to get out your Aayla Secura on turn 2. I opted just to do Aayla Secura, I think, and that might be something I need to play around with more in this list. Maybe like take out an Obi-Wan and a Chewbacca and put in a couple Kiadi-Mundi just so I have a little more targets. So that's something I might change. I kind of did this list a while back, but yeah, just feels really strong. Getting Aayla Secura out on turn 2 is pretty incredible if you're able to get Coordinate online, which you are because you have a lot of cheap units. And then Yoda's just in general is one of my favorite leaders. Like, his flip ability is disgusting, and being able to cheat out Luke very easily on your 5 resource turn is fun. And we have a good amount of Sentinels in here. We're just kind of Gamorrean Retainer, Village Protectors, Bright Hope, Obi-Wan, so we're really just kind of slowing them down until we get to our end game is kind of how this list was. But I would like to find a way to get Kiadi-Mundi in there if I can, just to have another target for your My Only Hope on turn 2. But the deck has performed really well in testing so far. But that's another one I think, it has a good matchup against Agra, has a decent matchup against Jango. I think where it might struggle is control, but you do have Home 1, U-Wing, and Spark for that. Han is probably another issue. You might have to put in Regional Governor and Scanning Officer in this list as well. So there's some cards you might have to add in and find a way to get them in here with more testing. But definitely Scanning Officer needs to be in here for sure, at the very least in the sideboard. So that's another adjustment I would have to make. But because, you know, Han yellow can really just prevent you from ever getting to your Yoda flip. So that's a really important card. Plus it's a 2-drop, so, you know, you could almost just squeeze it in here anyways as one of your 2-drops and replace something else. So that's something to consider. But that's definitely another fun one. Yoda Red, I just saw that a similar version of this deck just won a tournament. So, you know, this is one of those ones that I have not tested as much as I would have liked, but I really enjoyed Yoda, and I think this one has so much potential because of the discard synergy and just Yoda's ability to kind of dig through your deck and find what you're looking for while disrupting your opponent's hand with Force Throw, K2SO, and Pillage on the sideboard. So super fun one. Again, you might have to find a way to tech in for Han1 yellow if you want to have a chance against that matchup consistently. I'd be curious to hear what the guy who won the PQ did, if he played against any Han, if he got lucky and dodged them. But that would be, you know, I don't know if it's Regional Governor is the card that you need to put in here, tech in here, but definitely a really cool list. I really love the idea of getting card advantage with all your card draw with, you know, Kuil, Yoda, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Obi-Wan. You're getting card draw, and then you're disrupting their hand, so you're just getting major card advantage, you know, as the game goes on. So this one is kind of a deck that I have played a lot early on. I haven't played it a lot recently, but I still think that this deck is good. I do think you have to play it a lot, but these are the updates that I made to this list in the past month or so, and the Luke has been a really good addition, because one of the things that this deck was missing was good removal, and it just gives you another restore effect. So this deck actually does really well for the most part against aggressive decks, and we have enough space presence where with, you know, Consortium, Bright Hope to slow things down, Marauder's good, and then Home Ones are kind of your big payoff. And actually, the updated version of this has 2 Home Ones in the main board, and it's 1 Reinforcement Walker in the side. But, you know, that 2 Fell the Dragons is another piece of removal as well on the side. But this one, again, I think this one still has a lot of potential. You're still ramping up into big things like Reinforcement Walkers, Home Ones, and Crate Dragons really quickly potentially in here with your, you know, your Spark of Hope combo with Reckless Gunslinger and your resupply. Even Marauder can get you some resources occasionally. You could put the Assault Cruiser in here if you want to continue with more ramp, but this was still a really good deck. I mean, you're basically just outpowering your opponent quickly with like Poe, Aayla Secura, and Wrecker, and then your end game is Luke at 8 resources coming in, or you can get it with Ewing Reinforcement, of course, and then Home One and Reinforcement Walker, so, and Crate Dragon for those more grindier matchups or control matchups in general. But yeah, this is another one that I really enjoy playing. I think is a fun one to take into a tournament. Luke Blue, this one was cool. I just messed around with this one a few days ago, and it felt really good. I mean, putting shields on your Sentinels and just kind of Suji in particular. God, I love Suji. Such a fun card. The fact that you can smuggle it on the same turn that Luke deploys, the fact that it can come out earlier with, you know, with upgraded units, whether they have experience, top target, or perilous position from our deck, then Suji is a really strong Sentinel on your 4 resource turn. And then your end game, of course, is going to be, you know, you're putting a decent amount of pressure on them with things like Razor Crest, Suji, and Obi-Wan, and Bendu mid game, even Kanan. And then you're slowly putting pressure on them with some of your earlier units, using R2 to kind of cycle through your deck, and then you're closing out with Luke, Redemption, and Chewbacca, depending on the matchup. We do have Spark of Rebellion in here on the side for the control matchups, because I think that's one of the matchups we struggle. We definitely do well against aggro in general, just because we have so much restore. Playing Vigilance at 4 cost, I always forget that it costs 4 whenever I play double blue, because I'm so used to playing that card at 6. But it's just like, it feels amazing, and it's just so strong that early in the game. So I do think that Luke Blue has a little bit of legs, and it's something you should consider. Another really fun deck, and just kind of being able to play Luke. And I think shields are really good right now because of all the pinging from Quinlan and Cad Bane and Jango, and I'm sure there'll be more pingers But yeah, the shields are really, really good. So it feels strong. I think you just kind of have to play test this one a bunch to kind of get a feel for it and to make it work. But it does feel very, very good against those decks that I just mentioned. I would say Quinlan Red's probably going to be one of the harder ones because they have all the discard going on there. But we do have Kuil, Yoda, Obi-Wan in here to try to combat that some. So next one, Quinlan Blue. This is one I haven't messed around with in a while either, but I do think this one has potential. We've seen Quinlan Red have a ton of success. Quinlan Green's even had a decent amount of success so far. I do think Quinlan Blue, which is the first color I tried out with Quinlan, I still think it's a good combination. I think Quinlan is just one of those leaders that it can be good in a lot of colors. It's a very strong leader. But I've recently kind of changed this list around after playing Joshua Freeman's Han Blue list. I added in the outspoken representative, which just makes too much sense for there are two of them combo. Then we have the 3 Ki-Adi-Mundi and the 3 Plo Koon to pull out on turn 2. We have a lot of units in here to try to benefit off of Quinlan's ability, decent removal, and then the Spark of Rebellion in the side as a way to deal with more control. So another fun one. I think it's worth exploring more if you really like Quinlan and want to play something a little different. Cad Bane Blue, similar to the Jango one, but we're not exhausting things. So I do like this deck, though, because of all the Underworld synergy. Again, you see how Bosk is highlighted in here, but Bosk's value is a little different in here because you're not getting to exhaust things, but you're getting to finish things off that have been pinged multiple times, and you're also getting to benefit from having McClunky early on and doing the Bazine McClunky combo, which is sweet. Just playing 2 Starfighters because it's not an Underworld unit, but it's still really cool. Another thing I forgot to mention about Starfighter in the Jango list that has been just absolutely amazing is swinging in, once Starfighter's on the board, swinging into an opponent's space unit and then Starfighter dying and then pinging something on the ground and exhausting it, or just something else that's a threat, whether it's space or on the ground. Typically it's on the ground, though. It's just absolutely amazing in that deck. But it's good in here, too, just to finish things off with all the pinging that happens, and it just kind of sticks with the theme of pinging things that Cad Bane does, except we get to choose. So this is another really fun one, and I did see that it's had a couple pop-ups in top 8s with success, so definitely a deck to check out if you're into Cad Bane and you want to try something a little different. The one I just did, this is Joshua's deck. This deck definitely takes a lot of playtesting. It is, it's definitely unique to his style of play. Like I said, in the video that I did on this, I would move things around a little bit just to fit more of my play style. Like I wouldn't do the 3 Fell the Dragons, not a ton, but I would probably change the removal around a little bit just to fit more of my play style and what makes me feel comfortable in a matchup, and maybe adjust the sideboard a little bit because I'd probably want to have 1 Rival's Fall on the main board just for those decks that have really powerful leaders that can be a pain. And I'd probably play a couple Takedown personally because I just think that card is very strong right now, and it's a good, powerful, cheap removal, especially with Han's ability to ramp up quickly on the from the 5 resource turn to get to 7 resources. You can play Takedown and squeeze in something else. So, but that's, again, this one takes a lot of play testing, and I would have to play around with it more to kind of adjust things. But I definitely think this deck was good when I was playing with it. It took a little bit to get the hang of it, but once you get the hang of it, it felt really, really strong. Another really cool play, somebody mentioned in the comments on the other video, you can play a Tranquility to get back a Tranquility from your discard pile, and just, it's a good way against a good trick against control decks to kind of just cycle your Tranquilities and keep them continuously going back to your hand in a loop, which is really cool. So this deck has a lot of cool synergies. The outspoken representative is just awesome in here as well. So another fun one. Vizsla Blue, I did a video on this one I think a week or 2 ago. I adjusted the list around a little bit after playing with it, but I just saw this one finish top 4, and I think it was only 32 player PQ, but still that just shows that there's some potential here. I did look at the list briefly, not in depth. I'd have to look at it again to see what kind of differences they had from me, but I know they played 3 I'm Your Father, of course. Strategic analysis is just absolutely amazing in here as I've tested it more, just to pump up Vizsla to a 6/6 on its deploy turn. It just feels really, really good, as well as later in the game, just to be able to do 5 damage or do 3 damage with Vizsla's ability while drawing 3 cards. So this is another one that, like I said, it has a lot of potential. It felt pretty good in testing. I think I would adjust this list a little bit more after playing some more blue decks recently and just kind of where things are at. I do think in the blue-red version like this, with Boss Blue not having as much success with all the Han1 yellow running around, I do think you have to consider putting Scanning Officer in the sideboard, so that's probably a card I would consider putting in the sideboard here, because the Han1 yellow matchup is pretty rough, but another fun one. So definitely give this one a shot if you're into the blue-red control and want to try something a little different. Mace Red, another really fun one. I did see a Mace Blue list pop up winning a PQ. This one, my only knock on this one, of course, is that it can be hard to gain life. That's why I have the 3 Smugglers 8 in here to kind of combat that issue. But this list can be, I think it has a lot of potential, like the Vambrace Flamethrower, the Open Fire, and the Aggression early on are just so good in here. Just setting up knockouts for Mace. Aggression and Open Fire, basically both of them. For, Open Fire in particular, it can do 6 damage for 4 resources, right? So you play the Open Fire, and if you're on your 4 resource turn, right, you do 4 damage to a unit, and then you use Mace's ability for 1, and it pings them for 1 to get them to 5, and then it does 1 more damage to get them to 6. So Open Fire is incredible in here, and I think that's a card that I overlooked initially with how good it was. Like, obviously I played it, but I didn't realize that it's doing 6 damage for 4 resources every time. And then same thing for Aggression, except it's 5 resources to do 6 damage. So both of those are just incredible pieces of removal. Daring Raid's obviously very good. I do think the Smuggler's 8 really helped me to stabilize more against those aggro decks. Just a cheap way to gain 3 life to kind of keep pace and kind of slow my opponent down as I'm removing things. And then also just pulling it out from Smuggle is really nice too. And also adding in the Gray Squadron was just another card that I had missed early on for some reason. But it makes too much sense in here. I have seen some lists recently playing Wing Leader and putting that on the Gray Squadron. I think that makes a lot of sense. That's a card that I would probably try to find a way to get in here. Maybe take out the Anakin's Interceptor and find a way to get the Wing Leader in here, because I think that makes Gray Squadron really, really strong in this list. Because you can play aggressively in here too. So this is another really fun one to give a shot if you really like Mace and want to try something different. Wild Rancor is obviously very good in here as well. So, and then Ahsoka Green. This is actually the 11th deck, but this is it's one of those ones that the knock on Ahsoka is that it comes out on 5, right? But in here, like, with the the amount of life gain we have in here with Clone Deserter, Consortium, Sundari, and Echo, it feels like we're able to kind of keep pace with those aggro decks. And then we have Ahsoka's ability that we can use, which is pretty easily activated because of our cheap units in here. And then we still have things like Heroic Sacrifice and For a Cause and Daring Raid on the side to get over the top. In this list, it's very straightforward, and when I was testing this out, it was doing really well against other aggro decks. In particular, definitely needs more testing, but it's one that I think needs to be considered a little bit more. Like, if you want to do something different than Sabine, and you want to play similar cards but a little different, another fun one. So, that's kind of my list. So was it Ahsoka, Mace Red, Vizsla Blue, which is a fun one. The Han Blue PQ winner deck that I just went over. Cad Bane Blue, which I think is really cool with all the Underworld synergy. Quinlan Blue, which I still think is a strong one. And this one is really fun. The shields can be really impactful in those matchups in particular, because it's so easy for you to gain life in this deck. And then this one is fun for sure. It's definitely a little weird, but playing Luke at 8 resources just feels completely fine. Like, it doesn't feel like you're losing, especially because you have a U-Wing. And that really does add that component. It gives you that additional life gain unit. We already have Consortium, Sundari, Echo, And then you have Han1 and Reinforcement Walker as your closers. But getting Luke, and then it's kind of like, look at your curve, right? It's like Poe, Aayla Secura, Wrecker, Luke into Han1 Reinforcement Walker. So, pretty sweet. And then Yoda Red, that hand disruption. Yoda Green, with the life gain, the ECL, Yoda's Flip. Again, for both of those Yoda decks, I think you do, and even Mace, I think you do have to consider, how do I deal with Han1 Yellow? That's a matchup you need to play test a lot if you're going to take this to a tournament. And then, of course, the Jango Blue list, which, you know, there's so much card draw in here. I think we're okay, especially because Jango flips a little earlier, because it flips on 5, and we can exhaust things to slow them down. So, I don't know. That's a matchup I need to test out some more, though, as well, as far as the Han Yellow. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what some of your off-meta lists that you really like are. These are just kind of the 10 or 11 that I could think of off the top of my head that I've been really enjoying lately. But as always, y'all have a good one.